Minneapolis, St. Paul, The Fan.
Be careful with Johnny Pecker.
Welcome back, 9 to noon. Continuing some Viking-centric bits and some free agency fodder from last segment. And I guess we'll just, let's jump right into the pass rush, which is kind of where we left it, is, starting with the spine of the team. I was talking to PA last segment about some free agent corners, maybe the need for one or more in the draft. But let's start with the fundamentals here. Let's build it from the base up. And that starts with pass rush. Chase Young, PA. There's a couple of things going on among pass rushers. Nobody's jumping out of their chairs right now when I say the name Chase Young after what an unbelievable rookie season. Then it's injury marred. Then he plays a full season last year. Underwhelming, to say the least, for the 49ers. But I was looking at this. The Niners reportedly have interest, quote unquote, in Chase Young to return as he enters free agency, but have to resolve some cap issues.
Is this free agency fodder?
This is free agency fodder.
Loving it.
And the team has to be disappointed with the output after that trade, which allows them and any other team to maybe get a discount on his deal. His market value per spot rack is around 13 per for a 2-year-ish deal. So in some ways, not different. And the way I'm going down the road with this is Marcus Davenport. So the Saints. There's been a lot of scuttlebutt, you could say, about the Saints maybe looking at Chase Young. And the reason for that is Marcus Davenport, 2018 first-round pick didn't work out. 2021, Peyton Turner, I believe another first-round pick, hasn't worked out. And then Isaiah Foskey, a recent second-round pick, they've all failed to produce opposite of Cam Jordan, who's 35 now. So the Saints, as they try to resolve their cap problems, they also need to figure out pass rush into 2024. But Chase Young is going to potentially get more money and more suitors because news dropping, you were mentioning tag day coming up, and I think today is the deadline. Mm-hmm. Brian Burns was just tagged by the Panthers. So next year, he's going to make $24 million for one season of work, or if they don't re-up him on a deal or trade him, et cetera. But Josh Allen, Danielle Hunter, Brian Burns, kind of the elite edge rushers of the 2024 free agency. Price is going up on Danielle, it feels like, by the minute. The Jaguars could tag Josh Allen, too.
Yeah.
And then Danielle Hunter will be the highest-priced free agent pass rusher in free agency. And so the price is going up on those guys, which inherently benefits, after that big drop-off a cliff, the Chase Youngs of the world. So just kind of, and you really hit on it.
I'm glad you're going down this road, and sorry to clip, and I'm going to tell you why. Because with an interview I did yesterday, and I mentioned it earlier with the question about Flores' defense falling off, it's another part of the question was, and I was embarrassed when I'm like, damn, man, I really haven't even looked at it. I was asked, are there any free agents with other teams that are pique your interest?
Right.
I've looked at it so minimally because of the quarterback situation that that's no excuse. I mean, it's part of the fun of the jobs that I have, either with the team or with KFAN, and it's fun. And this Cousins conundrum is I'm permitting it to sap some of my fun from this time of the year. And so my answer was, no, I don't really have anybody in mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, we can. It's like given.
I've been obsessed with the quarterback thing. I've been obsessed with Justin Jefferson.
Like, I didn't even know Chase Young potentially was available.
I'm locked into what's happening internally before I can truly make sense of the external.
Yes.
So the Danielle thing, and ultimately I was getting to, essentially the market for Chase Young. And what's interesting, after really so much negativity surrounding him in the playoffs leading up to the Super Bowl, I think he had a sack in the Super Bowl. It may have been his best performance, really, of his time with the Niners.
It wasn't close.
But
the first half.
But in the end, the fact remains is you're talking about a guy that's going to command probably more money than really he's earned if we're just going by on the field.
Yeah, I'm out on Chase Young
because of how tricky this pass rusher market is. And the more that I look into it with Brian Burns being tagged, I think Danielle Hunter is going to get like near Myles Garrett cash.
Yeah, I agree.
If a few teams jump in, and that's $25 million a year.
I agree.
That ain't us.
Well, I agree, and good for Danielle. And Danielle, it's don't take the word deserve and amplify it and make it too strong. Like, who deserves what? I'm saying he deserves it because when you lose a full season, did he lose 2 full seasons, like season and a half or whatever?
Well, he lost the full season with the neck. The following season may have been a pec. I think he had like 7 sacks through 5 or 6 games, and then he was gone.
Yeah, I've shared that I chatted with Danielle Hunter and Harrison Smith on the sideline of a practice up to the final game of the season against the Lions, and I've shared that Harrison and Danielle both really, really want to return to the Minnesota Vikings. And they're not going to, I've just known them so long, they're not going to put it to me that way, thinking specifically Harrison, Paul's going to put that out there, it's going to help with the leverage. Now, they don't look at it that way. So in knowing they want to return and in knowing what you just said, when I say Danielle Hunter deserves every penny he gets, it's because we've watched somebody learn how to play multiple positions. How many years has he been in the league now? What, 7?
Well, it's 2015, so 8-9 seasons.
Okay, so he has had, basically nearly or right around a 25% of his career robbed via injury. All right, that's a lot. How did he come back? He came back better than ever. And then they stood him up outside to be a pass rushing linebacker after about 3, 4, 5, 6 games of like some visual mistakes even casuals can see watching TV.
Yeah.
Well, he took off. I mean, and really, what do you have, 10 and a half sacks, something like that a couple of years ago?
10 and a half.
So he really embraced it.
Next to Z.
And last year was the best season Danielle Hunter's ever had. It's the best season of his career because of his run defense. The
run part of it, I think, is the A topic. The sack numbers are sweet, but his overall play was dominant at times.
Well, the position flexibility is the key here, because if you're talking to Danielle's agent, and it doesn't matter what you run, he has shown he can be as good, if not better, than almost everybody at both spots. You need him to stand up outside. Go ahead and look at this. You need him to be a pass rushing left defensive end in a 4-3. Look at this. You need him to slide inside in a pinch and play 3 technique. Watch the Saints playoff game. He can play almost every position now on the defense outside. I mean, obviously like corner and safety, and he's not an inside linebacker.
Not much of a kicker either.
But I said on the defense. But when this thing rolls around on Monday, I mean, he's going to get so much cash, and he deserves it because of the work he's put in to not only adapt to the NFL from a tricky situation at LSU, change positions, be unbelievably good at both positions, sit out about 25% of your career, be incredibly sad about it and scared during that time that you weren't going to be able to play anymore, and then you come back, utilize God's gifts in a way that now, well, how about the part of, yeah, we'll sign this deal, but you can't put the franchise tag in it. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant to get it over the hump for Danielle. But now he whatever Danielle gets, Danielle deserves.
So I'll put a wrap on this segment here, and maybe that we'll continue this with Ben Goessling. So taking the internal, figuring out those issues. You mentioned the focus on Kirk, focus kind of much quieter than either Justin Jefferson or Kirk Cousins, really. Focus on what it means if Danielle is gone. Somebody that's not going to be tagged and will enter free agency, and it's been a really hot name, is Christian Wilkins. Yeah. And his work with the Dolphins, 9 sacks last year. Spot Rack has him somewhere in the neighborhood of like a 4-year deal that's going to be about at least 20 per. Yeah. So the idea of no more Danielle.
I'd love him.
But you don't replace him with an outside pass rusher. You place him with a guy that's going to sit next to Harrison Phillips, and he's going to wreak havoc from the interior. I think I didn't mention he had 9 sacks this last year.
Wow.
But it's an
He
interest.
had 9 sacks as a 3 technique last year.
This last season. So
wow.
How he got moved around, how all of those things intermixed in Miami, but it would be technically a reunion with him. My only question would be to you, and just something to ponder, is you replace an outside guy with an inside guy. How much does the outside guys matter, where you had Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips doing their thing, a distraction factor of sorts on the outside in Miami? Well, you got DJ Wanham and who?
Yeah, I would take...
But I love Wilkins.
I would take a dominating pass rushing defensive tackle 8.7 out of 10 times over an outside edge rusher. And the reason being is the outside linebackers who rush the quarterback are easier to find. Yeah, I mean, it's look at what DJ Wanham gave you last year. I mean, it's DJ, DJ was drafted, and DJ's been in the league, 4 years or something like that.
4 years.
But the way he took off in the right situation, it was impactful. And granted, you had Danielle bookending you, but yeah, 8.5 out of 10 times, I would take the pass rushing interior guy before I would take the pass rushing outside guy.
I tend to agree with you on that. And Wilkins, he'll be available next week, PA.
Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, covers the Minnesota Vikings, just back from the Combine. And the Scribe stayed at the Combine specifically through Friday so he could hear and or meet the quarterbacks. Let's see how that went with Ben when we return to your home for Vikings football. This is Speculation Central, and this
Soda Station for hockey.
Monday, isn't he?
I feel differently about it than I did coming out of the Combine.
I mean Danielle Hunter.
Oh, Danielle Hunter.
No, I'm just kidding. Cousins, he's a goner Monday, isn't
he? Yeah, I think it's certainly the KOC interview from Saturday certainly shifted my thinking, because I came out of the Combine thinking, how strong is his market going to be really? And are they going to be able to say, okay, we're going to make our offer, and you're going to come back around and say, yeah, this is still the best place for me. But the way O'Connell talked on Saturday, and we can go too far down the rabbit hole sometimes of
Nordo and I played it twice.
Stuff.
Yeah, Nordo sent it to me over the weekend.
Yeah,
and we played it twice yesterday. And yeah, I mean, listening to part of it early and working with Kevin the way we have.
Yeah,
press conferences, X's and O's, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he not to a fault, but I mean, you and I are not I looked into his eyes and I can tell this.
Yeah.
But he wears his emotions on his countenance.
Yeah.
And the inflections of his voice. Well, I mean, we've now chatted with Kevin a million times. So when the inflection changes a certain way to that of resignation, which is what I felt I heard early Saturday.
And it was a different inflection than he had earlier in the week at the Combine.
And so that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I am. And maybe that is going to be wrong. Maybe I'm overreacting to that, but you're right. He has been the type that you can kind of read the way he says things, and he doesn't tend to be somebody that does things by accident. I mean, he's a skilled enough communicator that he has a way of portraying things in terms of voice inflection, body language, all this stuff that generally is worth paying attention to. So the way the words he chose about he's earned the right to be a free agent, he's going to have a process, just the timing of it. If his process takes 3 days, he's gone. I mean, you can't make it work financially to bring him back once all of that money hits. Yep. So if his process is longer than like 48 hours or even 36 hours, I don't think there's a way for them to do it.
Ben Goessling covers the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. There's also some podcasting in the mix with the likes of his cohorts, Andrew Kramer, Mark Craig, Michael Rand's in the mix occasionally, and they do good work. It's StarTribune.com, at Ben Goessling via Twitter or X. How was the steamrolling at the combine? I mean, did you leave? It was a different kind of combine this year for us because of like doing the radio show, being with the Vikings Entertainment Network, and for you guys beat writers and everything. I mean, the Cousins situation is kind of like the NFL's A topic. Yeah. At this stage of the equation, and we're right in the mix. Well, but also for the first time, I learned what a combine was like and what the buzz felt like when there are a lot of quarterbacks that people want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a wonderful, wonderful venture.
Yeah, it is a different thing when there are this many, and this does feel unique. And history tells us some of these quarterbacks are not going to pan out. Some of the guys that we're talking about now are going to be guys in a few years that we say, wow, remember that guy and whatever happened to him. I mean, kind of like Sam Darnold has become, and you see the life cycle there. But at the moment, there's certainly different flavors. There are different things about a lot of these guys that are appealing, and I think a lot of them did things to help themselves over the weekend. I mean, J.J. McCarthy had a good workout, answered some of the questions I think that people have about him, though you can also read too much into the combine stuff. Michael Penix, I think, helped himself overall. The guys at the top, there's been a lot of buzz about those guys in general. So it is a different thing where you could potentially be talking about 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the top 10. Maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20. We've got a long way to go before the draft, but there at least is enough to kind of parse through at this point that it for those of us who are in the business of talking and writing about these things, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of content to chew on for
big time.
The foreseeable future.
Right. And so do you see it as a Cousins chasm or a Cousins conundrum or Cousins curiosity? I mean, it's the reason I lay it out like that is...
Please lay it out more.
Well, it's massive. Yeah. I mean, it's massive for the now and the immediate future, but I'm not... Things with Kirk, the alacrity or the speed with which this Achilles healed.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously, it's like I really thought by February, March we'd be talking about different things with the Achilles that we were talking about late January. Yeah, and now he's bouncing around on the tennis court trying to do all that stuff to show people he's good. I'm good.
You saw that video too, huh?
Right,
that got dropped the day everybody was going to the combine.
What, really? Okay.
Coincidence, I'm sure.
I understand. Yeah. And I get that game. You are relegated to playing it more than like I never play it with the agents. Yeah. Okay. Like it's like I don't have a working cell phone number for Tom Condon. But
I don't either. but not him.
But specifically at the combine chatting with agents and everything. All right, well let's take that a step farther then. Yeah, that dropped day the combine started. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. I did not think of that. All right. Well, Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, last night and this morning, the Cousins family are looking for houses in the Atlanta area. All right. Well, with all due respect to Mike, who will join tomorrow, I'd bet everything I have he didn't get that from Kirk Cousins. He didn't get it from his father, Don. Yep. He didn't get it from his wife, Julie, which means now as we narrow things, Mike McCartney, the agent, that's who I would make prohibitively favored to be feeding that information. So how seriously does somebody who has the gift of discernment, you, take something like that when you read it?
Well, that one was interesting because I look at that a little bit as he may be looking at housing in case of a move. It doesn't necessarily mean that specifically is like the smoking gun, because this is the guy in 2018 at the Super Bowl when he was here, when Alex Smith got traded to Washington. Mm-hmm. He'd spent half of the Super Bowl week scouting things out here, not necessarily knowing if he was going to be here yet, but knowing this was going to be an option. I mean, Kirk, as Kevin O'Connell said, process. He's all about process and trying to set his family up, set himself up the best if that's going to be the spot. Yeah, I think there is some homework being done there that may not mean it's signed, sealed, delivered. At the same time, I don't think he's wasting his time. Right. I don't think if that is true, if he is looking at housing and all of those things in Atlanta, he's not doing that for no reason. And I mean, we talked about it. I think Atlanta's been the team all along that makes the most sense, other than this one.
Looking at housing, when you have amassed the capital, that family has, looking at housing could include buying an entire development.
Yeah, I always love that one.
And thinking about Cooper and the rest of the kids and like the future of the family. And, this is going to be a good investment for down the road. That could be looking at housing too.
Yeah, it could. I mean, I guess I am curious to see how all of this shakes out, because there was a lot of talk in 18 about how big his market would be, and it came down to really two teams. And I think that's probably where we are here, too, in terms of Atlanta and the Vikings. I think are going to be the best fits for him, and we'll have to see if Atlanta has interest in, Mayfield's name came up, Fields' name came up, all of these types of options that may also be fits for them. I mean, there's been a lot of steam around Cousins in terms of him being the guy that they are pursuing the hardest. And if that is the case, maybe they show him the love he's wanted, and that's enough to get it done. I will be interested to see if anything changes between him and the Vikings between now and next Monday or Tuesday, because we really still are 6 days from anybody being able to agree to an offer with a team that you are not currently employed by. So there is enough time yet for things to change and negotiations to go a certain way. I don't know that they will, because it seemed like everybody's kind of got their places where they're drawing lines. That's at least been my read on it. But there's still a little bit of a time segment here where the Vikings have the ability to get something done if they want to.
But that's the reading between the lines with the O'Connell inflection.
Yeah.
I mean, just listen to that sentence I just said. Hey, but nevertheless, I mean, if you're looking for the crumbs, specifically somebody like you who breaks news and stuff like that, it off what you just said, that okay, well, we're still early in the equation as Monday would go.
Yeah,
O'Connell, paraphrasing, basically put it like this: we're at a place where you're not supposed to meet and talk about things, but they meet and talk about things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I heard that and saw that, and I'm kind of like, that's main man saying, basically, like outside of a name on a line, that something is done. Yeah, I just
think it's that concrete.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly a possibility
or he fears it is,
or he at least knows there is a strong push here, and we are going to have to deal with that. And I don't know that they, in the end, are going to be pushed off of their spot. I really don't think they are going to get into the bidding war and say, well, we've got to do whatever it takes to bring it back. I think there is we want you back in these parameters, and we think that's a good option for you. And if you find something else, then we will move on with our lives. But I don't think they are going to be pulled into a bidding war where we'll do whatever it takes.
But I think it's fair to wonder, and I could ask, but I'm not going to, because my relationship with Kevin and/or those is not like that. But on the radio, I have no problem saying it. I just wonder how much on board Kevin is.
Yeah,
because it's okay. It depends on who you draft or who you use as quarterback next year.
Yeah,
you're going to win more games with Cousins.
Yes,
most likely next year.
Agreed.
And maybe the next year.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kevin's going to look at it that way. Best chance to win with what I have now.
Yeah.
And Kevin also has the right to feel, I know he's going to be 36, and I know he popped the Achilles, but I also know what I've seen behind the scenes, and he's going to be good for, if Kevin were to say 3 years, I'm not going to, 3 to 5, I'm not going to argue with him.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, when you say like potentially somebody is not going to budge.
Yeah.
I just wonder how much the head coach has a say in that whole equation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think the question of how much, because I also think they look at this quarterback class in the draft as one that you have to do something with. I think they see the uniqueness of this. So if they are not going to budge, how much of it would be Kevin versus Kwesi versus ownership, whatever, and how much of what may be holding them back is, well, we can't commit to you for 3 or 4 years because we are pretty set on doing something to get the next quarterback in here out of this draft, which probably then puts an expiration date on Kirk Cousins anyway.
Yeah.
So I do think that is a component of all of this, is that this draft class, they know is a unique opportunity, and I think they are very intent on doing something about it this year, which probably tempers a little bit of the approach with Cousins.
Well, and to that end, I was going to go a different direction, but continuing that, whatever say or whatever the pie chart looks like in terms of how much Kevin gets a say in their pursuit of Kirk.
Yeah.
He's got to have like all the say in whatever quarterback that they're pining for in the draft, right? I mean, let's not play
free agent or the trade bid.
Correct. Let's not play that game. Whether it's the steam on Justin Fields, the guy that calls the freaking plays and makes up the offense, like he has to have all the say. Like that, the idea of Quasey being like, well, no, I like Bo Nix.
Yeah,
that shouldn't matter at all. It should be all KOC. If we are going to move forward without number 8, right?
And I'm glad you said should, okay, because it's all right. Kevin O'Connell watched, let's say, 500 Josh Dobbs snaps.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
I can't see, like, okay, well, this happened to Kirk, and now we got Jaron, and Nick has the back. What are we going to do? Josh Dobbs does not come close to fitting what Kevin O'Connell has built with that offense.
Yeah, agreed.
So therefore, I can't see O'Connell being the one banging his hand down last year saying we got to have Dobbs.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you want to go back and think about, if we're going to be like who should have what or whose past performances are requisite of making a call like this, well, that absolutely had to be Grigson calling brother, who works in personnel for the Cardinals, and let's start it there.
Yeah.
Or Quasey just saying he's available. I remember him from Cleveland. He'll help now. Let's get him.
Yeah.
And then Kevin just acquiescing.
Yeah,
or
could be
having no say.
Yeah, certainly could be. I think the rookie decision has to be different than that. And there's so many things with the Dobbs stuff that they were put in such a tight spot that it's hard to use that as kind of the barometer for how all of these things are going to work going forward. But this decision, I 100% agree with you, has to be one that Kevin O'Connell is completely on board with. How many times have we heard him say the quarterback needs to be an extension of me out there?
Thank you.
And the way that Kirk Cousins has worked with him and the way that Kirk Cousins has worked well with him, I think, is that a lot of times Kirk Cousins is that extension. He sees things the way Kevin O'Connell sees them. He can operate at the line of scrimmage in the way that Kevin O'Connell wants him to do it. If you have a rookie quarterback that you are bringing in from day one, and may not be the starter day one, but you're going to develop on day one like he's going to be the franchise, you are tying your futures to that quarterback. And that quarterback has to be in lockstep with Kevin O'Connell. Even if he's not the choice of everybody else in the building, there has to be somebody saying, look, even if I have a different preference, the guy that has to work with him every day, the guy that has to game plan for him, the guy that has to call plays for him, the guy that has to have a coaching staff to develop him, all of those things, his voice, his preference has to win out. Because I just don't think, the teams that we see dominate in the NFL every single year are the ones that have a coach and a quarterback that are in lockstep. And Kansas City is exhibit A of that. So if you find that guy, you need to get him and pair him with that coach.
That's why it's fun, at least it has been 9 to noon, to discuss Justin Fields and things that have popped up there. Which it's, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Who cares? It's close to a zero chancer for me that they trade for Justin Fields.
Just doesn't add up.
But I can't see in any way. And if I'm wrong, then and they do it, then I will go to somebody and say, teach me. Just teach me.
Sure.
And I'll lay out what I said here and what I know and what I saw with Dobbs and Hall.
Right.
And then Mullins came in, and wow, it mostly looks like the Minnesota Vikings offense.
Yep.
Okay, he's going to throw it to the wrong guy with 2.5 minutes to go, 6.3 out of 10 times. But the rest of it up to the 402, that looks like the high-end Minnesota Vikings passing game.
Yep.
That ain't Fields. Okay, I'm not saying it can't be. He doesn't play that way.
Right.
So therefore, if there's a trade for Justin Fields, which is a super long shot, I just can't see in any way how Kevin O'Connell would be on board with that.
Yeah, it would have to be that he's saying, kind of doing the Andy Reid with Mahomes thing a little bit of like, well, this is your offense. this is what you do well. We are going to change what we do to match that. I just don't think that's plan A for them. I think they believe pretty strongly in their offense. They believe pretty strongly in what quarterbacks need to be able to do to succeed in the NFL. I mean, you hear him talk about some of these universal traits, accuracy, the ability to process and make decisions in timely fashion. The accuracy thing is the bigger concern with Fields and the fact that a lot of it has been relying on his legs.
Yeah.
And
which I don't mind.
That's not a bad thing.
Well, he's good at it.
But that can't be job one.
Yeah.
I mean, job one, I think, in their offense has to be know where the ball is supposed to go. Cheat sheet, it's usually number 18. And get him the ball in time to allow him to make plays with it.
Yeah. And this may sound rudimentary and basic for quarterbacks at the highest level. But if you go back and look at like Cousins' passes, you don't have to look at all of them. And you know this because you've covered the team in football for a while. There's an underrated facet of Shanahan, McVay, O'Connell, and whomever else's offense where there is a looking at one thing for a beat and a half, knowing something else is going to break open and swinging that swivel all the way around to the other side. And I've just never seen Justin do it consistently.
Yeah.
I just haven't. And for years, I've been like, my man doesn't have a swivel. All right, I'd be concerned about that. Well, he found a swivel last year, but it wasn't the swivel.
Yeah.
Cousins has the swivel. Now, if none of these rookies, if they're not capable of doing that immediately, fine.
Right.
But that's why you teach them and raise them. And supposedly there are 4, 5, 6, or 7 that may be able to exponentially help teams. But Justin has had that opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's like the Atlanta game, man. I mean, if you believe Kevin O'Connell looked at a situation like this, and I do, Dobbs electrifies the National Football League with a running touchdown right in front of the press box to the right side of the end zone.
In Atlanta,
As T.J. Hawkinson broke off in the middle of the field with what actually was the passing play.
Yes.
So now, if you look at that in long form, how much of that gold is going to be left there on the field because my guy decided to run?
Yep.
Well, that's also Justin. I mean, he's better than Josh Dobbs, and he throws better than Josh, but that is just Justin. That just feels like O'Connell and offensive staff pulling out their proverbial hair game after game after game.
Well, I think a lot of it is they are looking for the plays almost all of the time that are going to be explosive downfield. Kind of, you hear O'Connell talk about premium looks and getting all of these kind of great opportunities to manipulate coverage and get big plays out of it. You are going to have a better chance on average to get big plays by throwing the ball downfield to your receivers than you are having your quarterback take off and run. It's not a bad option, but if you are basing your offense and your quarterback running for 7 or 8 yards versus being able to throw the ball to one of your receivers for 15, it's not a good trade. And I think that's a lot of where O'Connell comes at it, is saying, let's do the things that give us the best chance on a repeated basis as you do it over and over and over and over and over to be an explosive offense. And I don't think he looks at having a quarterback take off and run as the main way to do that.
PA got a text yesterday, Troy in St. Paul, longtime listener, tremendous rube. One of the guys, I pick up the phone, I recognize his voice. He's been calling for years. Love the guy. He was talking about something that you were on a year ago about how an extension potentially would have been signed by Kirk, but maybe there was an argument or there was a disparity in terms of term. Maybe 3 years instead of 2.
Yep.
In the end, would it be too flippant to maybe say this was decided a year ago? When that didn't happen, it was over, and maybe even inside the building, it was kind of known that they would get to this spot. Would it be too flippant to point your finger in the air and test the wind on that idea?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that decision last year certainly pushed us in this direction because it made all of this void money stuff a thing when it wasn't necessarily going to be as big of a problem for them cap-wise as it will become. I think it was the first time, really, if you think about it, where they had gotten in a room with Cousins, knowing they needed cap space, and said no to the extension. Every other time that has come up, they have given Cousins at least something of an extension. This time they said, we need the cap space, but we're not willing enough to go to where you want to go to do it that way. So instead, we'll add the void years, and they've kept the option open to bring him back, and I do think the way he played the first half of the year helped him out in their eyes. But I also think there was some of the kind of steps taken down this road, if in fact the road we're going down is him leaving Minnesota next week. I think some of those steps were put into motion last year. It certainly made it harder for them to come all the way back and do a deal with him when it didn't get done last year. And I think that's probably in his mind a little bit of they didn't show me the love I wanted last year in terms of the guarantees and then the financial component of it. I don't think that's flippant to say that.
That's Ben Goessling of the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com, reporting live from outside of the Atlanta Falcons facility in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Sound is great from Georgia to Minnesota.
Better than that switchblade you dropped on us last week.
Yeah.
Continuing coverage of the Cousins conundrum via 9 to noon continues.
KFAN, The Fan.
Good stuff.
You like that? You like that?
Time for 2 more.
9 to noon.
The game is over. Boom!
So what do you do? I mean, do you have to have your phone attached to one of your hands
Pretty much.
24/7.
Yeah.
At least through Monday, Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday. I mean, seriously, what
Yeah.
do you do?
Well, I run with it a lot. I mean, I've done that more than I should.
You have any
over the
track
years.
meets for Apple Valley coming up soon?
We start practice on Monday.
Okay.
So I've
that's
kind of
cool.
said, hey, this first week I'm going to be a little bit sparse.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have it around you all the time. I typically am not a run with my phone guy, but next week is
Run with
definitely.
your phone?
Yeah, I hate it.
It's cumbersome, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't like it. And a lot of people listen to music. I'm not typically a listen to music guy when I run that much.
Yeah.
But next week I will have it with me, and I don't like it. But my editor last year when I said, "Hey, I'm running the Boston Marathon in April," and she's like, "That's going to be right during free agency. That you're training for that." Like, I know, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. I don't like it, but we'll figure it out. So
Right.
yes, I'm going to end up probably having my phone on a few longer outings next week.
And you're not mad at said boss.
No.
And they're running businesses.
Part of the deal.
Abbott here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same conversation that I've had a couple of times. Like Sunday, I'm taking my son to Los Angeles for Wolves Lakers
Nice.
that night and Wolves Clippers Tuesday
Nice.
night. Okay, well, right. Nice when
but something's going to
Sheikh
happen.
Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum and I were embracing about a great trip with me and my kid.
Yeah.
So, and that a month ago. Now it's like, oh, wait, that's the legal tampering Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, KFAN and Abbott, of course, super respectful of the trip. But now there's a tentacle to it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, bring this radio equipment. I mean, no problem. I'll like you just said. He said, and then I said, we will figure it out if something happens.
There's a reason my car has a Wi-Fi plan now.
Yeah.
And the technology is great because you can kind of work from anywhere. I was talking with a student I'm mentoring yesterday about this, and you can kind of do anything from anywhere. The bad part is you can do anything from anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, there's kind of a double side to that. But
Right.
in this kind of thing, it does allow you to say, okay, I am going to go do some things, but I can still stay connected and be in touch with what's happening.
Do you think in any way is Jaron Hall being shortchanged during this doom-seeking conversation?
In terms of his potential to develop?
What about me?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say that, I think, when you had the Sunday night game that he had against the Packers, and after a half, it was like, okay, we're moving back to Nick Mullins. The thing Kevin O'Connell has said a couple of times is we're trying to make it so that he understands this is not like a final referendum on his potential in Minnesota. There's still, they took him knowing he's a project. They took him knowing there's development that still needs to happen. And a guy like Josh McCown, when Kevin O'Connell talks about a holistic approach to the quarterback position, I wonder if guys like Jaron Hall are who he has in mind when he says that, saying, let's get a guy in here that played this position in the NFL for a long time and can impart some wisdom in ways perhaps that somebody who hasn't done that can't do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that they would put him at the top of their plans by any means, but I think if we are to sit here and say, oh, well, we've seen everything we need to see with this guy, it's over, I don't know that I would go that far.
Now, you, Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, at Ben Goessling via Twitter or X. Do you go with X yet or still Twitter?
It's still Twitter to me.
Me too. Via Twitter. And by the way, it's
when it's not that dumb website.
Yeah,
it's Twitter.
It's Twitter.com.
I call it one of those two things.
But it's also Twitter.com. So we can brand it and call it X, but there ain't no X.com. I mean, I don't think they want to mess with the X's in the search bar,
not.
but we can talk about that later. Nevertheless, you stuck around steamrolling at the combine through Friday, or at least until Friday.
Yep. Because
that was the big quarterback's day.
Yes.
Props to the NFL, too. Generally, that's earlier in the week.
Yeah.
We're just squeezing every single metaphorical drop of blood out of every symbolic turnip in every step of life right now. So it's like, hey, who put the quarterbacks on Tuesday? No, it's a hot market or whatever. Let's move it to Friday. Then they can talk about it all week, and we can maximize the machine, 24/7.
Yep.
That's fine. They get a business to run, too. But you stuck around for it, which was cool. I watched some of the press conferences. Caleb Williams is just very, very sharp.
Yeah, he is.
Very sharp. More so than the sheet he's memorized with how to answer.
Yeah.
Why don't you do this? He's just sharp. You can just tell, wow, that guy's sharp, man. He just gets it right out of the gate. But what did you see? What did you learn? What was eye-opening by sticking around Friday with any of these quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, I think Penix had a lot of questions about him, and I think did a good job of answering some of the health stuff and some of the stuff with the performance in the national championship game. I don't know that puts him at the top of the chart, but I thought he did a nice job in that setting and in the workout setting as well to show what he could do. Yeah, Caleb Williams is interesting to me because I had sort of had this perception of him as like, okay, he's a guy with a dad that is super involved, and we see where that goes a lot of times. But it's more of like this almost disruptor kind of mentality of I make a lot of money for my school. I'm going to make a lot of money for whoever drafts me. Why don't we stop and think about this and say, is this really the best way to do things? I mean, just some of those conversations, even the thing he said about the teams that interview me will have my medicals and nobody else will. I thought was that really interesting because.
And add to that, he didn't say this, but do you look at it like this? Just because that's how it's always been done doesn't mean we need to be fat, happy, and lazy and just look back at what always has been done. Well, there's time for change, and look at me like this if you want. I am the change.
Yeah, there's I think a lot of times in business when people say, well, this is the way we've always done it, it's like, okay, that means you don't really have any new ideas. You're not really thinking that hard about what else could we do. It's, well, this is just what we've always done. So we're kind of stuck with that. But I do enjoy, or am intrigued at least by that component of him, because I think one of the things he's saying with that too is I know that everybody gets my medicals if I go through the combine stuff, which then means there's one team that drafts me, there's 31 that don't. I'm going to have to play all of these teams, and they know all of the things about me that might be areas to tell their defensive linemen to keep in mind. Hey, he's got an ankle that he sprained in week 4 of 2021, whatever it is.
After all, Sean Payton still is in the league.
Well, yes, there's some of that. And I think I don't know this for sure, but I would not be surprised if one of his reasons for saying you have to interview me and show that you're sort of interested in drafting me to get my medicals is that, because he also knows I'm not going to go 14th. Realistically, there are not going to be that many teams that have a chance to get me because I'm going to go no lower than 3. Yeah. I mean, I think even going that low would probably be a stretch, but that plays into it there in a way that it wouldn't for a guy that's ranked, 87th on somebody's draft board.
Yeah.
But when you have the leverage that he has found some interesting ways to use that. And I guess my answer to that is more power to you. And it's at least interesting to me that he's doing it the way he does. I'll be curious to see how much of it works, how much of it sets precedent going forward. But just his thought process on things was intriguing to me.
You think 30 seconds? You think Danielle is gone Monday?
I do.
Like
yes.
Monday, like that's one of we start. This and this will all be signed on Wednesday. It comes like a flurry.
Yeah.
I mean that feels like it'll be a Monday.
I think if a big offer comes through for him, yes, I think he signs it pretty quick.
You're playing
agrees to it pretty quick.
You're playing very fast right now.
They have to this time of year.
I don't care what Messrs. Craig, Kramer, CJ from the Metro section, and or Charlie Walter, and really, really fast.
Appreciate it.
So have a great week. Bless you. Love you very much. And we'll talk soon. All right?
Sounds good.
Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. Continuing coverage of the Cousins conundrum via 9 to noon, and KFAN will continue throughout the day, undoubtedly. And likewise with Ahmad Hicks from Fox 9.